Welcome to Unclogged Conversations, powered by Larry Stinson Plumbing. That was a long flush there. Scott, today we got a guest that people love to hate, or they love to love him.
Do we have a doctor?
No.
Oh.
The insurance man.
Oh.
Everybody's favorite.
Well, favorite when you need them.
Yep. Welcome, Tyler Woolsey with a Rollo. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Rollo.
Rollo. All right. I got close.
Looking through everything and trying to get information. And they had a claim. This is probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after we first started talking to them. They had a claim situation where at one of the dealerships, one of the detailers was moving a car. The story was that he was moving a car out of the detail little barn thing that they had, was moving it and go park it back. Apparently had reached down to mess with the floor mat. It was like stuck or something like that. He was driving a brand new Dodge TRX.
Wow.
Yeah. Looks up, realizes he's veered off like the road and he's heading towards a car, freaks out, instead of hitting the brake, slams the gas. And so, I mean, it's a Dodge TRX.
Yeah, that's all right. So Tyler is our insurance here at the company and our personal insurance, and been very good to us. And we brought him on today to explain some of the ways to help you keep your insurance rates down in the plumbing world. Things to look for, things to not do, things to not say. Be calling insurance guy. The restoration companies love to use lingos that don't get you or help get you covered. I'm sure most insurance guys fringe at.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Well, I think with restoration companies, obviously they make a living off of insurance, right? So they view insurance a little differently than maybe people on the advisor side might advise their actual business clients and how to go about things. So most restoration companies are, file claims first, ask questions later.
Well, you get the money either way that way.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do, but not always so good for the consumer end, or the actual client. So
that fine print, there's you're paying for it either way. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things that people don't always keep in mind is, insurance is not a non-profit industry.
No.
They're for profit, and they're going to get theirs. So whether they're getting it now or getting it later, there's ways to navigate it, and there's definitely good ways and bad ways to go about it.
So I guess the biggest thing that I wanted you on here for and to discuss is what can your or my clients or your clients or anybody out there, what can they do to help make sure, be preventative to help make sure that they don't have to call you or call an insurance company? Because
yeah, I mean, I think it's I think one of the biggest thing is to not be scared of the call. Now, let me be clear on that. Agents want you calling the agent. Yeah. And then that's big too, because I just had a conversation with this, unfortunately, with somebody the other day, and that was all they had. They literally had a question of, hey, how should I go about this? Should I even file a claim? Should I not file a claim? Do you have coverage for this? And they made the mistake of calling the insurance carrier first. The problem is when you do that, it doesn't matter what's going on. The second you pick up the phone and you call an insurance company direct, you call your carrier direct, they're inputting a claim. They're taking your information, they're putting a claim, and even if it's just to answer your question and they say, yeah, don't file that, you're going to have a claim, which is not a good scenario for anybody, whether you're a business, whether you're an individual. And so I think the big thing is like I said, don't be scared of having a conversation, but have a conversation with the right people, right? So, that's what we're here for. That's, why we're agents, why we're advisors. And I tell people all the time, when I need a plumber, I'm going to call you. I can't be an expert in every field, right? So I educate, I train, I learn on things that I advise on, and I'm going to lean on experts in other fields. And so I tell my clients that as well. I don't expect you to be an insurance expert. I want you to be as educated as possible. But at the end of the day, when things hit the fan, I want you to call me and let's talk through it and advise through it and figure out the proper game plan, because the last thing you want to do is to open up a claim with the insurance carrier for something that really didn't need to be done.
So what's your favorite policy to cover commercial, residential, homeowners, cars? What's your favorite one?
Honestly, I love commercial insurance, and we do it all. We do health insurance, home auto, commercial insurance. I love commercial insurance, just because there's so many nuances to it. Home and auto is great. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of home and auto insurance out there, agents out there. There's a lot of people that do commercial insurance, but there's a lot of people that do commercial insurance bad, the wrong way. And I think being a small business owner myself, that's the part about commercial insurance I like. It's way less transactional. It's more relationship based. It's more, trying to come alongside another fellow small business owner and say, hey, let me be the expert in this field for you, guide you in here and explain nuances and help, protect the small business and legacy that you're providing, that you're trying to pass down to your family, just like I am. So, for that reason, I love commercial insurance. I think it's great. I think it's a great way to, like I said, protect everything that we've all put our blood, sweat, tears, and equity into.
Do you see any big changes in the commercial industry in the near future or long distance future?
I can tell you right now, one of the biggest things we're seeing changes with, obviously, here in North Texas, we're seeing a lot of changes on commercial property. Just like, we're all feeling on our own personal homeowners policies and, less competition there, higher deductibles, higher premiums. We're seeing that in the commercial space too. 5% wind and hail deductibles is not super uncommon on the commercial properties here in North Texas. Just being pickier and pickier on who will take them. We're seeing more and more things go to the surplus markets versus the admitted markets. But the other thing that we've recently seen too is commercial umbrellas just taking a beating on rate increases, on carriers that are willing to write them. And it's really interesting. So reason being is that obviously, we live in this litigious society where people are looking to sue somebody to make money, unfortunately. And so that's what they're seeing commercial umbrellas being tapped into on a far, more frequent basis than we ever have before. And so, it's the 555 guys and the Jim Adlers and the toughest J. Henrys. And that's, I think a lot of them out there, you see the commercials for truck drivers. But I think it's kind of a misconception. Like a lot of them love suing small businesses.
Oh, yeah.
Big trucking companies, they got big policy limits. They have deep pockets. They're big, flashy billboards. But they also know that small businesses don't have the resources and the pockets.
No, they don't have the lawyers that the big trucking companies have to turn around and fight them right back.
No. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that we're seeing a lot of. Like I said, the commercial umbrellas are going up a lot. And just being able to mitigate your risks on some of that. We're seeing businesses that are having to go and one of the biggest expenses on the commercial umbrellas a lot of times is covering over that auto policy, right? So the true umbrella policy is going to cover over all of your underlying lines. It's going to cover over your work comp, your general liability, your commercial auto, all underlying lines. We're seeing a lot of them now that businesses that are not being true umbrellas are not covering over the auto because that's kind of one of your biggest exposures there. And so, there's just a lot of change, a lot of nuances coming in, some of that stuff just to be, kind of aware of the market and where it's going. But on, a brighter side, we're seeing a lot of decreases across the board for general liability in certain class codes. We're seeing some decreases on work comp, which has been nice and been good. So, really it's just kind of the ebbs and flows of the market. And I think, things will settle out a little bit. Something else is crazy that we learned not too long ago is they've done some research into like overseas money coming into the United States with like literally countries using insurance claims in America as basically investments. So when they find these claims and they file these claims that, there's basically private equity companies that are just investing in insurance claims like, hey, we'll front some of the money for the litigation and then we want ours on the back end on the payouts. And you start tracing the breadcrumbs and it's pretty crazy. I think there's some lawmakers in California of all places that have actually put some litigation out in their state that are trying to put some type of caps on some of this stuff just because it's getting out of hand.
So in the plumbing field, we'll circle back around to homeowners type insurance. Do you got any tips or tricks that they can do for help protecting their homes to, we discussed the mow and flow, which is automatic shut off to flood stops on deals. But, Have you seen anything on your side that helps?
Yeah, no, I think that's a bigger thing. One of the crazy things, I'm sure y'all probably had to come out and do it for some clients, but like the high net worth homes. So we're talking, homes that are, $1 million plus, which, really is
Getting more common.
yeah, it really truly is. Like when you look at $1 million home nowadays, it's not what the, $1 million home you thought 5 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
So a lot of those carriers are now requiring it. So I know like Cincinnati and Chubb and some of these other kind of higher net worth client or carriers, they're making that a part of their requirement is that you have to have, these type monitored check valves and stuff in the home or they won't even write the policy.
I think it's cool. We did install one of our episodes. We did the mow and flow, and we installed it at our house. And I discussed it with Scott here recently. It's neat. After installing it, I'm not as sold on it. I mean, it's an added feature to your house. It will help on flood disasters. I mean, I haven't had one, so I don't know how
One of those you have, but I plan on not using it.
yeah. But the app is. I was showing Scott today. I don't know how accurate it is on the usage side.
Yeah.
There were some things that I'm like, I don't have an irrigation. It says we've used the irrigation 3 times this week. And I don't have an irrigation.
Yeah. I get that.
Those are neat. I still am a big fan of the flood stop. I think a flood stop's the best thing you put on water here, especially water here in the attic.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't see putting water here in the attic without a flood stop. Even if you had a mow and flow, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still a lot of water, even if it's shut off.
Yeah.
That's 50 gallons.
I would want the flood stop up there to stop it before the mow and flow sensor said, hey, wait, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I get that. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think the other things on a homeowner side, and I'm sure y'all see it a lot too, is people just don't understand like what water coverage actually is covered on a base policy and what's not. I talk to clients all the time where they're just like, I more or less just lay out some claims examples and say, okay, if your toilet backs up and flows all over your floor, your living room, like, would you expect the insurance company to pay out for that? And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, of course. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have coverage for that. That's not inherent in a homeowner's policy, at least here in North Texas. Like, you're going to have to add sewer backup coverage to have that. Yeah. They talk about like, the sewer lines and stuff, whether the grading's wrong or whether it's the tree roots grow through them, and they call and they're like, hey, it's going to be $12,000 for my sewer lines to get replaced. Like, do I have coverage for that? And a lot of people don't know, like, no, you don't. A lot of carriers out there have endorsements for that. I'll tell you a quick story. I had older lady who was a school teacher, bought an old 1952 house in West Fort Worth, and, cute little house, but it had a huge mature oak tree in the front yard. And she was real, nickel and diamond on everything. She was a teacher, and I understand. I used to be a teacher too. And so, money's tight. And I just said, ma'am, I really think you need this service line endorsement. It's $32 for the year, and it's going to cover you. And you've got this old tree, and you don't know for sure if they've been replaced. I was like, it's just a matter of time. She closed on that house. 2.5 weeks later, she called me. She said, hey, Tyler, my sewer lines are all backing up. They say I got to rip them out. Do I have coverage for that? And I said, yes, ma'am. Remember that endorsement you fought me tooth and nail over for $32? Yes, ma'am. You've got coverage for that.
Well, there you go. Saved her that $32 saved her a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Me and Scott were sitting out. One of our plumbers brought back a brochure from one of the local restoration companies. And he was showing me the inside there, and so I was showing Scott earlier. Inside there, they had all the proper wording you should use to be sure it helps get it passed by the insurance company. It was a detailed playbook on if it's this, say this. If it's this, say this. Not this, don't say this. A detailed playbook on how to.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see that.
I'll show you after this.
Yeah.
It's big, but I mean, it's just floating around. You can come across it anywhere.
Right. Well, I'm sure it's, like I said,
I'm not going to name the company on here, but I thought it was interesting. It's not a company we use. They beat my door down to get us to use this.
Yeah.
And they're in every supply house that you go in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm sure it's just a nuance of trying to skirt and make things that people inherently don't have coverage for. Trying
And I get it. I mean, their job is to please the customer and make that, get that customer to do that job so they make money and make their living. It's just, it's an interesting industry. And, I've had people offer for us. There's a lot of plumbing companies that have restoration tied into them. Mm-hmm. And I've had people try like everything to get me to add restoration to our company. And I mean, it's a money making business.
Make a lot of money.
I don't know that I could sleep at night running that business.
Yeah.
I'd have to
be truly profitable.
Yeah. I'd have to know a lot less than I do running this plumbing company about what's going on too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like anything, obviously it's, anything that deals in insurance, whether it's, restoration or roofing or even medical insurance, right? Like anything that's getting money from insurance has a propensity to want to, skirt the lines and try to get as much out of insurance companies as they can. So, I mean, there's good restoration companies out there that are honest guys that do it the right way. And then unfortunately there's plenty of ones that aren't.
Yep.
So same thing, roofing, same thing, health insurance, it goes around.
So, you got a crazy story in one or the other industries or?
Man, crazy story.
I mean, that was a pretty good one about the lady with the pregnant surf. But
man, I've got one that I had to walk away from. This was a classic tale of a client that, I'm back up. So it was a guy that ended up becoming kind of a friend of mine, got hired on at this company, and it was a newer company. They'd only been around for, 2 years or so. And they were doing car detailing. It's a lot of dealerships and at the auction houses, like so the big Manheim car auctions here in Dallas and Houston. And they were in a ton of locations. I mean, I want to say they were in like 30 something dealerships across North Texas, Austin, Houston. And, so this guy asked me to come in. He was relatively new to the company. The owner was a younger guy. I think he was like 28. Company had blown up on him in a couple of years. He went from like a startup to doing like $5 million in sales in a matter of like 2 years. And so he's like, hey, Tyler, I'd like you to look at our insurance. I don't know that any of this is correct. And lo and behold, it wasn't. None of it was correct. And so we were in the process of looking through everything and trying to get information. And they had a claim. This was probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after we first started talking to them. They had a claim situation where at one of the dealerships, one of the detailers was moving a car. The story was that he was moving a car out of the detail little barn thing that they had, was moving it and go park it back. Apparently he had reached down to mess with the floor mat. It was like stuck or something like that. He was driving a brand new Dodge TRX.
wow.
Yeah. Looks up, realizes he's veered off like the road and he's heading towards a car, freaks out, instead of hitting the brakes, slams the gas. And so, I mean, it's a Dodge TRX.
Yeah, so that's how it go.
Yeah, that's you mash the gas, it's going to pick up a little bit. And so proceeds to ram it into a brand new Dodge Hellcat. Wow. That then ricochets and hits a brand new Jeep Wagoneer fully loaded. He swerves off of that and then proceeds to drive it through the building.
$350,000 worth of cars and then the building.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I get a phone call at like 7 a.m. the next morning, like, hey, Tyler, I know, you're working on this. Here's what happened. Do we have coverage for this? And there's nuances within garage, coverages and when you're dealing with cars and there's certain garage keepers type coverage you have to have. And they didn't have any of it. And I was like, guys, you can file a claim, but I can tell you right now, this is not going to go well in your favor. Like, y'all don't have coverage for any of this stuff. And sure enough, so they ended up having to cut, they also owned a body shop. So they ended up cutting deals with the dealership and they repaired the building and they ended up buying all 3 vehicles and doing the body work themselves. Wow. And trying to, it was bad. So there was that, and that was trying to help them overcome that obstacle. And then like a month later, they didn't have any work comp either. And like a month later, at the Manheim auction in Houston, one of the vehicles they pulled in from the auction to detail, I guess the brakes were out. And so one employer ran over the other employee.
Wow.
With the car. So then they called me, they're like, hey, Tyler, Oh, that's a lie. They did have work comp. Sorry, let me back up. They did have work comp. They had 160 someone employees. They had 3 employees actually rated on the work comp. They had 3 office workers, and that was all that they put on there. Basically, they were not really paying their employees correctly. They had 1099 everybody. Basically, and I tell people all the time, there's insurance, there's taxes, there's some similarities there, but at the bottom line, like insurance is going to be like how these people are working for you as employees or not, and whether or not you're responsible if something happens to them on the job. And so, yeah, sure enough, she got ran over by the car. It was super unfortunate. Their work comp didn't pay out because that wasn't even a class code. I mean, they'd had 160 some odd employees instead of the 3 they were rated for. And so at that point, I just told them, well, hey guys, so, we're 2 in the weeds. I can't, I'm not to walk away here. And I don't know what actually ended up happening. I know she basically got a lawyer and we're suing them for medical damages and lost wages, and it was going to get ugly. But yeah, that was crazy. So dang. Within like a 2-month span, they were like, well, we never had anything happen. I think we're fine. And then it just, things went south quickly.
It happened quick.
Open their mouth and say ain't nothing happened. Got anything else you want to end on this?
Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest thing, out there when it comes to insurance, whether it's your personal insurance, whether it's your commercial insurance, is just find somebody you trust. Find somebody who's more education driven than sales driven, and just, ask the questions. Just say, hey, even the hypothetical ones, like, hey, say this happens, how would I be covered for that? Whether it's, how do I cover my tools when they're on my employees' trucks, or, how do I cover workplace accidents? How do I cover if somebody sues me because I fired them and they're mad at me?
Yeah.
Just all the nuances, whether it's in your commercial business or in your own policy. Like I said, find an agent that cares, find somebody you can call and talk to, on the customer service side after they sell you the policy. That's the biggest thing. And just having that relationship, having somebody you can trust, just like all aspects of your life, I think goes a long way.
Well, we do appreciate it. You always treated us good.
Dude.
And
hopefully we don't have to call you too much.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. You know what time it is.
I got a short one.
You got a short one?
Yeah, a little one.
Look at there. Been a while. Leak Down's making a comeback.
Okay. So this one was years ago. I guess it was after I worked with you the first time.
Okay.
But still a lot of years ago. Working for another company, doing mostly remodels. Was working with 2 other guys. One of them kind of drove me crazy because we were all kind of equals on the job, but he felt like he was running the show for no reason. So he was kind of getting on my nerves, and I was kind of getting tired of him. But anyways, we're going into this, me and my buddy that I was still on good terms with. Walking into this house, we know he's up in the attic checking out these water heaters up there. We come walk through the front door. It is a huge, massive house. 20-foot vaulted ceiling is crazy. We come walking in, we hear a yell, and then we look up and we see one leg shoved through the ceiling through a can light, just swinging there. And then you hear all the cussing and everything. And I don't know, because he had really pissed me off that morning, and it just felt so karmic. It just...
Instant satisfaction.
We had to run up there and grab him and haul his ass out of there. Man, he was mad. And we just couldn't stop laughing. The more we laughed, the madder he got. And it just made my whole day.
And that's why the code reads, you got to have a walkway.
So, but on that, he was on the walkway.
He was on the walkway.
They cut out a hole for the can light.
Oh.
So he's walking along a walkway.
And missed. And
that foot went right into that hole for that can light.
Somebody didn't understand that code.
Yep.
The electrician didn't understand why that code was there.
Yep. So, I don't know. That was just a fun one from the past.
All right, Mr. Will. You got any facts? You didn't give us no facts on the insurance today.
No, I didn't. It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay.
What we were talking about.
More dry than anything. Yeah.
Hey, but important. Very important.
I know. Will's always got to prove us either right or wrong. I thought he was over there typing away trying to find something.
I was, but there was nothing.
Okay.
There was nothing interesting. Just
Okay.
Nothing interesting about insurance.
Pay your premiums up there when you need it.
There you go.
There you go.
Tyler was right on everything because Will couldn't prove him wrong.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, well, we appreciate y'all joining us today. Next week's gonna be interesting.
What are we doing next week?
We're gonna have probably me and my wife's right hand man down here.
I'm right here.
Yeah, well, you're the second right hand man.
okay.
You're left hand.
I'm the left hand.
Everybody will be the left hand man.
But now, Julie O'Brien is gonna make her debut.
Having the history and being able to see exactly what each plumber has done at a previous job site on the house and being able to compare notes with other plumbers and always having that in our back pocket. And I really like that on the dispatching side, I can pull up a whole map and have my whole day lined out pretty much on that map on Service Titan and not have to sit there and go through Google and do the routes on each single person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
All right.
So you got 1.5 guests.
We got 1.5 guests next week.
Yeah.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
There you go. Y'all have a good weekend.
Yes, sir.